What's going on, everyone? It's Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com coming back with another episode of the North American Weed Tour podcast. We're looking at the best in legal cannabis across the map. Today, joined by special guest B.C Wehman out of the Cleveland School of Cannabis. How are we doing today, B.C.?
I am well, man. How are you doing today, sir?
Hanging in there. I'm a little frozen, I record my little studio set up in my garage. I live in the Seattle area. It's like under 40 degrees out here right now. So even with the space heaters going, it's a little chilly, man. It's a little chilly.
I can see that. We are dipping down. We have had a seasonably warm autumn thus far here in Northeast Ohio, kind of where the Cleveland School of Cannabis, as the name implies, is located. But this past week, winter came, just like Game of Thrones, winter finally arrived, and it has been 20s. It's been snowing. It's quite chilly outside. So yeah, it is that time of year when it's starting to drop back down. I never look forward to it. I never enjoy it, but it happens, right?
Yep. You can't escape it. So I start off every episode with our guest origin story with cannabis. I'm just curious whether that's personal, professional, whatever you choose to be vulnerable and sharing. I'm curious when you and cannabis, began your guys' relationship.
Sure. It's interesting. I talk a lot with people about coming out of their cannabis closet, so to speak, because I think in order to, kind of like yourself, Mitch, in order to really succeed and excel in this industry, you have to open the door and let people, blazon it across your chest. Like a lot of people, right? I'm almost 50 years old. I had some in college, dabbled around, but I'll tell you, I'm very much a late in life adapter, right? So we're looking at probably 35 to 40. Was at a job, knew someone who had not consumed, had not smoked cannabis, weed, whatever, in probably a decade. Felt like something interesting. And then it started, right? It started casually. It started, and as my friend Dr. Kumar Bid would say, I was basically medicating myself without understanding what I was doing on a level, but I felt myself opening up, right? I felt myself becoming more of who I am. I don't know how to say that. And I think people listening, if they've had their own cannabis journey, so probably like 35, 40, began very casually consuming it. And then around, about 42, 43 years old, give or take, so about 7-8 years ago, I had a, midlife crisis is what my wife would call it. I would say like a phoenix-like rebirth from the ashes, Mitch. Like I became the best version of myself, and I wanted to find a way to combine kind of passion or things I enjoyed with skill sets, knowledge that I had found myself with, which is how a lot of students end up at the Cleveland School of Cannabis. So I literally did that. It's probably 2004, dude. I'm Googling cannabis jobs, Ohio. In Ohio at that time, it's a pretty red state, if we're going to be honest. We just had a Republican elected governor. We cannot hide that. We have a begrudgingly decent medical program that started in 2016. But so I was just like trying to find a job, and there just wasn't any until literally one day the Cleveland School of Cannabis popped up, and here I am still. But so there was around that time, had it as an adult, found it helping myself, and I felt like a best version of myself and decided I wanted to get into it. At that time, it was just because it was cool and fun. But through the last 6-7 years, both my own personal journey, learning from some amazingly smart, way smarter than I am people at the Cleveland School of Cannabis or just in the industry or at events like MJ BizCon, really began to understand the depth of what cannabis is. And now, I'm like all in, as they say, right?
Oh man, I love that. And I can definitely associate with, wanting to work in cannabis, especially during that time frame, and the amount of opportunities are limited, especially based on location, right? Like I live on the West Coast. We're pretty blessed. There's a lot of economic infrastructure around cannabis, potentially based state by state and the professional level. That might seem to, funnel down to not as many opportunities, but still much more than when other markets. But I really appreciate you sharing. And that's absolutely, you hit it on the nose. Why I lead off every conversation, whether when, someone from a school on here, a broker, which is basically just a modern day dealer in the legal market, CEO of a company. There's just so many different aspects of cannabis. And I like to start with just our personal relationship with cannabis,
Sure.
Whether it's using it or a family member or just the ties to that, because I think that just further breaks down the stigma. And if we're going to make this plant normal, let's just talk about it like it's some normal shit, man. We weren't able to get on podcasts and just talk about this, 20 years ago. I wasn't even doing this necessarily 10 years ago, and I was pretty all in on cannabis at that point in my life. Maybe not publicly.
It's that time, right? You got to eventually let it out, and then you start to find all these amazing people. I'll tell you, sometimes I feel bad because I've met so many amazing human beings whose lives have been changed by the plant,
Mhm.
whether it's any form of the plant, CBD, whether it's the THC, heck, even industrial hemp. Like their lives have been altered, whether it's professionally, but mostly medically. Like people have had that or discovered it, or through a family member who's had their symptoms therapeutically relieved because of the plant. I feel guilty sometimes that I just found it as this creative outlet, which pushed me in a direction because, and as you work and as you alluded to, you meet so many people whose stories are just deep, just deep and rewarding. And it also then serves as that affirmation, right? That just approval stamp that says, yes, that's exactly why I'm doing this. That's exactly why.
And that's, the amazing thing about cannabis. I always say it's so many things for so many people. So I do understand and feel that feeling guilty. There's people that have overcome crazy cancer battles with
Mhm.
cannabis, and it's hard to sit next to them and be like, yeah, I just like it because it helps me make music. But at the end of the day, we can still come together and celebrate over this plant that's done a lot of
Yeah.
things to a lot of people. So you mentioned around the time you found the Cleveland School of Cannabis, but could you give me kind of, the basis of when the school started and what was the original intent or inspiration behind the school?
Sure. Our founder, Austin Briggs, was a gentleman from Northeast Ohio, had found his way out into California out there and was kind of in the cannabis industry and kind of saw an opening, right? Right is in 2000 through the early teens of the thousands, right? Where that is 2012, 13, 14, Ohio had attempted, much like Michigan right above us, the state above us has had medical cannabis. They've been adult use for several years now. So Ohio had all these different bills, right? All these different legislative measures that were attempting to pass ballot initiatives, and they just kept failing. They were getting close, or they had too much restrictions or too much monopoly for different owners. And so eventually House Bill 523 passed, right? It was a legislative measure. Ohio was one of the few states at the time to legislatively approve medicinal cannabis. Governor Kasich at the time signs it. And so saw this opportunity, right? He had someone who had went to Oaksterdam, had a positive experience out there in California, and said, this is going to be needed. There's going to be a lot of jobs starting, and there's going to be a lot of unproperly prepared individuals, right? And so that's how it started. And so it began as a floor in an office space in 2017. We just celebrated 5 years as the only state accredited cannabis institution east of the Mississippi. 5 years, started in an office floor, handful of students, and has grown to our new building, which we are now growing. We have an industrial hemp research license. You got to get with the technicalities here in Ohio. So we can grow, though, the plant on site. We can grow the plant on site. We have a processing lab on site. We have a mock dispensary sponsored by Dutchie. Shout out to Dutchie, one of the leaders in POS systems. So students can pretend and acclimate themselves to the Ohio dispensary experience, which is not like walking in the Target and buying a candy bar. Like it is a process of waiting rooms and checklists and in days allotment and THC caps and all sorts of what a lot of people watching this are purists would probably be very upset about. So, I mean, that's how we started, and we've just really have evolved and grown with this industry to really provide, I think, one of the most in-depth, hands-on, like touching this plant. We have VR headsets. People are taking tours of facilities, hands-on education. Plus, and that's just in our building. We obviously have a robust online as well. So it's come a long way in 5 years, but it's pretty freaking cool, man.
Yeah, that, alongside what we're talking about, the economic opportunities around cannabis, right? With that leads way for these opportunities for education and higher education, pun intended, slightly intended.
I say it's the highest of educations. That's my pun I go to. That's my go-to pun out of the pocket, Mitch.
The highest. It's the
highest of educations.
It is the hot dab of education. It is the 1,000 milligram edible of education.
Something like that. Exactly.
No, but I mean, there's need for that, because as we move into, obviously, people can learn on the job, but beyond just learning bud tending and starting to bud tending, becoming a assistant manager, general manager, potentially regional manager, right? Kind of your traditional retail route. There's ways through you guys of not just teaching the ways of cannabis and certifications around medical programs, but also business education, correct? So you can also get a little bit of an understanding of the plant, of the medical cannabis, and then also get some skills to to take that and further progress it beyond just getting in the industry and start climbing that ladder, because as this industry continues to expand, those economic opportunities are just going to continually increase in both geographic areas where they're at, but also just availability of right now, whatever the number of executive level jobs, it's going to continue to increase, and then subset that, right? Director level, manager level, everything's starting to increase. For you guys getting hands-on, what point in the school did you guys get the lab and start being able to be more hands-on? From, you guys have been around 5 years. At what point was it able to get more hands-on in the classroom?
Before I get to that, I want to point out something you just talked about the industry, and what's really unique, I think, about the cannabis industry right now. We like to say it has a immense amount of upward mobility potential, meaning, and we have seen this already. We have multiple students who have graduated and started as that entry level position, bud tender or patient navigation specialist or a trimmer even. And now they're directors, right? They've quickly moved up. There are so many jobs that open up rapidly. Right. And so we like to think that we're preparing them for both the entry level, but as you said, we have introduction to business in our school, for example, which does a pitch, like a Shark Tank like presentation, thinking about starting up a business. Or I teach a class called Commercial Cultivation Operations, which uses lean and takes a look at efficiency and thinking of cannabis cultivation on a large scale level as a manufacturing operation, because #facts, that's what it is when you're doing it on that kind of level. There's always going to be boutique, but there's going to be Walmarts coming. So we're trying to prepare them, for what they're doing. So we were able to, through the first several years, kind of give a very on-site education. Didn't have a huge, strong online presence, but then, 2019, 2020 started, COVID hit. And so we had a building in a school built for bringing humans and educating them. And so we had to make a quick pivot, right? Had to figure it out. And we'd been slowly putting the pieces together, but hadn't found that kind of sprinkle of magic trichome dust. But we found it during COVID, and we have now developed an extremely robust on-site or online learning program where you're talking with teachers. We have live classes, but they're recorded so you can watch them. Every single one of our classes is offered. In fact, some of our cooking classes, the instructor uses 2 cameras, kind of like a cooking show, and shows you what she's making and talks about what she's making. So we had to pivot to that. But then coming out of COVID, we got a new building. And that's where we said, if we're going to get this new building, we got to do something to bring these people back. And that began this expansion of our new facility with a larger classroom, a cooking lab built into it. And we're not just making cookies. I mean, we do. Don't get me wrong. We make cookies, once again, infused with hemp oil. But our instructors take a look at who our students are. If they're heavy vegan, all right, we'll make all vegan meals. We're making pastas. We're making pizzas. We're making pancakes. Cooking day is awesome at the school. I know, like, they're not infused or anything, but they're just yummy treats. So I love when cooking class happens, because they're bringing you like snacks on the down low. And I'm like, oh, like, it's not good for my figure, but it's like super yummy to eat, which then led to our processing lab, right? Where we have tumblers, we have rosin presses, we have all these things you're going to need. And then our grow room, which we're just about to see. We are about 7 weeks into our first grow, which has been a process, learning how to grow in an office space that's under construction. We have amazing people working with us, putting it together. But we are about to hit the flowering stage of our first grow, and we have it in ebb and flood tables. We have deep water cultures. We have growing like basically 3 or 4 different ways. So we have students now starting, especially in Q1 2023, who are going to be able to essentially clone the plant, and maybe by the time they're done, be able to trim and kind of prepare that same plant, or turn that same plant into a concentrate, or turn that same plant into an oil. That's pretty cool, right? Be able to basically do that. And so you're going to be able to, because Mitch, you've been around to several different like cultivators in this area. You've been doing this a long time. Growing is hard. Like, it's not hard. Let's be real. It's sun, it's water, it's dirt, right? But we don't say it. Now we got soil, and now we have hydroponics. To do it well repeatedly takes some time and some skill and some effort. So learn here, like, make your mistakes here. Because I'll be honest, not all of our plants are beautiful. Like, you would walk in and be like, man, some of these are a little sad looking, but the reality is they're growing and they're learning, and we touch them a lot. Like, you shouldn't be grabbing and putting your oils of your skin all over them, but that's the experience you can get here, is you can make mistakes here and then obviously get into the field. And so you have employers who are looking at our graduates saying, well, not only have they touched the plant and grown the plant several different ways hydroponically, they've used registers if they take that course, they've made food, they've infused it, they've processed it, and we're talking business skills, we're talking career services and resume prep out the door. So it's a pretty robust experience. Obviously, hands-on, and our campus in Independence, Ohio is great. Our online is a huge experience. You know, we've obviously have a ton of students across the country, to be honest with you, starting in the last couple of years. So it's a pretty cool thing that I still get. I mean, so many people still say, like, is there a weed school? I'm like, yes, we don't really say weed, but yes, there is. And so it's csceducation.com. I mean, we would love for people to check us out.
Absolutely. And we had someone drop a comment in here talking about one of the most, the important key aspect of the cannabis industry is compliance and regulations. Absolutely, have to agree with that. It varies on state to state. But one of the things I know just from a marketing standpoint, right? Because like I've not been an owner operator in terms of worrying about regulations from a cultivation standpoint or retail standpoint. Maybe on behalf of my clients, those considerations come into my concern, but more so for marketing. And I know, at least from marketing, the state of Ohio is the strictest state I have ever dealt with when it came for compliance around marketing, the restrictions, the waiting period. We couldn't even, we were doing some online content for a dispensary or somebody, a multi-state dispensary chain that had some infrastructure in Ohio. And it was even blog post on their website had to be sent to whoever the Cannabis Control Board is for proof before it could be published on their website. And it really racked my brain that it was that level of regulation on blog posts. So I'm just curious. I would say, from the outside looking in, uneducated opinion on education, that would put you guys kind of at an advantage of operating in a state whose program is so restrictive and so many regulations are around it. Do you feel like that kind of bleeds over into the school's just understanding of regulation and importance on compliance in general?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we haven't even talked about, we have a whole law and policy class, right, that deals with these things and understanding the fact that even though it's approved federally, or even though it's illegal federally, it could be approved in your state, but it could be adult use and it could be medicinal. It could be very lax rules like Oklahoma, or it could be very stringent like Ohio. It could be a low THC CBD rule. It could be a decriminalized state. It could be a lot of different things. And so, but even then, your municipality, your local town, they may not want you out. So our law and policy class takes a look at local politics, state politics, national politics, federal politics. So it's hard. And so we have several classes that talk about those things. And as you mentioned, not only the law and policy part of it and the regulations, but I love that we get into, and we have some smart people, doctors talking about the endocannabinoid system, looking at CB1, CB2 receptors in the different terpenes and how they interact with them, and the several different cannabinoids and that entourage effect. So we just had an open house event, a hugely attended open house event not too long ago. We have lots of people show off our school. And one of the things surprises me every time from people who, I'm going to go out on a limb or say it, are probably hardcore cannabis consumers, just that A, they don't even know what the word terpene is, and B, everything else after that. All right. So if that's where your starting point is, all the other educational aspects about it. So we're taking a look at the plant on not just this level of, hey, here's better ways to sell it or smoke it or make it, but what is the history behind it? I mean, the history program taught by people like Brian Adams and such who developed that is a deep look at the culture, at the society, at the different past issues that this has had, based off race, a lot of it. And so we got really take a deep, honest dive with conversations into how we got here in the future of it. So it's not just even those operational aspects, it's history, it's law and policy, it's endocannabinoid system. It is, and we have different majors, like our programs, essentially certificate programs. You have the executive package, which is probably about 65% of people taking it. So there's a lot of information that we're trying to present besides just, hey, bro, here's some weed. And I know that's stereotyping, but it's true. That's what we get. They're like, hey, I want to be able to sell it or smoke it. There's so much, man. And you know this, but there's so much. And it's just every day. And it's a constant evolving thing. Shout out to the double M's, Maryland, Missouri, just got 2 more legal states with 2 more states, regulations going on. So there's so much in having a school that has a staff. We're talking a staff, not just one or two people. You know, Tyrone Russell, Kevin Green, our president and vice president, will be in Vegas at MJ BizCon at the Hush House. We got to promote that at some point. They'll be there, right? Those two gentlemen have led us a long way into where we're at, but we got a huge staff. We have faculty all over the country. California, Washington, Georgia, Maryland, New York. We got people all over the country that are working on our online education. In hundreds of students. So we got a lot of things happening right now, and we're really excited. 5 years in, almost feels like we're just getting started. It took a long time. COVID kind of hit a pause button. Now it feels like 2023 and beyond is just like, that's where it's at, Mitch. I really feel, that's where, and then talking about it, educating people.
Yeah, the growth. And I feel what you said on not wanting to stereotype, but there is a lot of thoughts, right? Like a lot of people want to get into cannabis simply because it's something that they're passionate about. Before cannabis, I came from the music side. Music's obviously something that the majority of people are passionate about or have this enjoyment, or at one point in their life been like, oh, I want to be a musician or work in music for a living. And in music, I always found people would get into it because they thought they were passionate about it. And then we're like, oh, wow, this is really hard work, and there's a lot of stuff around it, right? There is no dream job. I mean, you can work your way to a dream job, but there is no like, oh, I want to do this dream job and I'm just going to do that, right? Like you have to learn, you got to fall flat on your face, and you got to do a lot of suck to get like the stuff that you enjoy. And cannabis is very similar. People are like, oh, I just want to sell weed, or whatever. But there's systems and processes and traditional, if you're on the retail side, there's traditional things on the retail side that doesn't matter if you're in the mall or a dispensary, these things that you need to learn and understand. Cultivation is the same thing, just growing a couple plants for hobby versus growing at scale versus identifying problems, part of a room, a whole system, right? There's so many different aspects of that. And that's where I think that importance of education too, of having that opportunity to education is kind of experience things before you get to it, right? Like
absolutely.
Like so many times you can say, oh, this is what I want to do. You spend all your time preparing and you hop in and you're like, damn, like actually I really only enjoy like 3% of this. And I didn't really pay attention to this other 97. And like, yeah, this just isn't for me. And so I think having that opportunity to have a school, right, where you can learn about hey, I love cannabis, but I don't quite know where I fit in or what I'll most enjoy, and being able to kind of learn all of these concepts. And so is that something that you guys see with students? Like, I know it's popular at a traditional college where people would just go in, not declare a major, kind of get their bearings, and then be like, all right, this shit over here, I met a teacher or got a spark of inspiration or see this career path that I didn't quite understand. Like, is that type of stuff you feel like happening with students at the Cleveland School of Cannabis?
Undoubtedly. I always like to say people like to think they want to grow weed all day, every day, until they have to grow weed all day, every day. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, what have I gotten myself into? I would say a lot of people start at our school with the intention of probably growing cannabis, right? They smoke it, they consume the product, whether medicinally or on a recreational adult use level. So they consume the product, they like it. They figure, hey, I see all these shows and all these podcasts, things like Respect My Region. They're all like promoting it. It's a cool place to work. I could work in weed. And then they come here, and so many people, and we hear this often, probably a few months in, like, I thought I was going to come here to grow cannabis, but then I realized I could do this, whatever this is, right? We have a lot of people, we have a medicinal focused program that looks at the endocannabinoid system. It looks at the history. It looks at a few other aspects. And so we've had several people create their own startups, Delta 8 CBD companies or other things, taking just the medicinal focused program, learning about terpenes, learning about the effect on their body, learning about the endocannabinoid system and how all these receptors work, and learning how to think about the plant as a therapeutic and medicinal thing, and then say, boom, now I got the inspiration to do this because I already have skill set A, B, C, and D. We have a lot of people who will come there, once again, saying, I want to grow or I want to do this, who get into different aspects and say, yeah, I wanted to grow, but man, my brain is scientifically tuned. So testing is going to be this huge market that's going to blow up. So maybe, since you guys have talked to me about testing, if we looked at different type of, gas versus liquid chromatography machines, and now we're like, what? This is a whole nother thing. Or maybe we're going to edit tissue cultures, or we're going to look at cannabis on a genetic level. Like, yeah, we can get science. Or Maybe you want to take these business skills and do other startups like food trucks and these things. So a lot of people come, I think, to grow. Not everyone. I mean, it's a broad stereotype, but I think horticulture is one of our most popular single certificate programs for sure. And I think when they get there and get into the depth of what cannabis is and the many, right? We're not, we got some, according to a Columbus Dispatch article, like 4,000 jobs, give or take, coming to Ohio in the cannabis industry in the next year, right? So we've been talking about that. Like these jobs are coming. That doesn't include, Mitch, what we're doing, ancillary. Both you and me, both at Respect My Region, both at the Cleveland School of Cannabis, both at my other podcast, Because Cannabis, all these other things. It doesn't include the t-shirt makers and the clock makers and all those other unlimited opportunities that can be adjacent to the plant, right? The plant exists, but ancillary businesses drive forth the product itself at its core. So that's unlimited. Right. We're at just the very start of delivery services, bud and breakfast, consumption cafes. Like we haven't got to what those are going to be yet. Those are babies. And no, we got to have cards and this thing. Wait till it's like the bars and those things. So yeah, you can take all these other skills and really apply them. So it's amazing sometimes to see where people start, just like any learning experience, right? Where they start, and then at graduation, or most excitedly, for example, we just had a recent trade show. There's trade shows, MJ BizCon 2022, where you're going to be at this week, happening. To have these trade shows, we had one here in Ohio, and all around the place, and all these cultivators who are working, it's students, and they're like, "Hey, I remember you," or "Hey, I had this," or "Hey, thank you." That was shocking to me. I think sometimes they go out and I know they're on their way and it's exciting and I hear their names. Hey, you got a job at blank cultivator. Hey, he's a grower. Hey, she's doing this. But to see them and they're representing the company and they're found their passion, like they get to work in cannabis all day, or some started as a processor or a trimmer and, just realized I don't want to trim all day and they got another aspect. It's just cool. It's cool to see where they start and then see successes in action. Like that's what makes it.
Absolutely. And like you said, the upward mobility, is a good word choice earlier. I got to give you flowers for that. And this industry is extreme, right? Just the level of opportunity to get in on the ground floor now, even as a bud tender, even as a trimmer, and what you can do in 2 years in terms of moving up is significantly potentially less obstacles than maybe getting in tech at an internship level and trying to work your way up, right? Like those industries are a little bit more established and kind of the steps you need to take are very systematic. In cannabis right now, like the stair set's being designed so you can get in at step 1 and then potentially end up on step 8 pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's like at MC Escher House. There's steps all over the place, man. Like they are just constant. It's like Harry Potter. They're just constantly moving. You could think you're here, and all of a sudden, freaking staircase, and now you're going this way or up or down. There is, just potential, not just startups and companies, but explosion of most of our cultivators, for example, in Ohio, are expanding. We just launched 70 new dispensaries. So we got all these. So you have that, and that's just our state. I mean, you got Vegas, you got the 21 now adult use states and all that stuff. So we had so many people that will graduate and then move on, like go out west. I mean, it's where they go, right? Where you're at in Seattle, out there in Washington or Vegas and Colorado, clearly. California putting out $8 billion every year, $1 billion. New York is going to be enormous. So they're able to go there and then find success. But you can just, look, everyone's got to climb a ladder. Like we know that. So our goal is to two things, right? Give you some skill sets and not just plant knowledge. Cause there are so many people there who are smarter than me about the plant, like every day, but life skills sometimes, or just business skills, or thinking about the plant as a product and not just smoking it. Think of it as a commodity like copper or coffee beans. Like that's in people playing the stock market and trading the value of your company. So introducing those things, regulations, the endocannabinoid system, or all those things. We can introduce all these aspects. So your entry-level employees are more well-rounded, undoubtedly, like really higher up. And B, these people are also given some skill sets to chase their own dreams, do their own things, whether starting out, but they can climb faster. And I think you're going to climb the rung faster if you have, the skill set up top. Like if you have that working, if you've got that backbone of the highest of educations, then you're definitely going to, I would think, and I hope, and I know, because we've seen it. I don't just think, I know you're going to climb that a lot faster.
Absolutely. One of the things, we touched on a minute ago, or you touched on a minute ago, was kind of the history, following the history of this
Mhm.
plant and what the war on drugs has done to certain communities. So I know you guys have done scholarships. Could you give me a little bit of a backstory of kind of how much? I believe I had to figure down. It was like almost $200,000 in scholarships. So what communities those are going to, and what that's looked like for you guys?
Sure. Well, social equity is a huge thing, right? In fact, our sponsorship of the Hush House at MJ
Mhm.
BizCon, Tyrone Russell and Kevin Green, our sponsorship was providing 20 tickets to social equity operators. Shout out to Devin Alexander, Rolling Relief. I saw your post on LinkedIn. Shout out to the Cleveland
Hey,
School of Cannabis for giving you a ticket. Rolling Relief, Devin Alexander attending Hush House at MJ BizCon
that's
2022.
my guy.
So that was a big thing, right? For us as part of it. We're understanding of both the consumers and the people who have been heavily affected by, as you said, the war on drugs and their inability to get into positions of leadership, right? I start a lot of my classes that students who don't look like me, unfortunately, a lot of people are run by companies who look like me. Maybe not glorious red beards like me and you, Mitch, but they're there, right? You're just like a few months away from this. I just realized that with your redness there, sir, below the chin. So yeah, I mean, we realize the impact that it's had in so many people that aren't given opportunities. So whether it is finding ways to provide scholarships, whether it is different forms of the Cleveland School of Cannabis, like the Harrington Institute, which looks at providing scholarships once again for people who have been disenfranchised, who have been put back for it. The people who run our company are both amazing men, and they're African American men. I don't need to point that out, but just in the fact that it's important to them to see people succeed, for them to be seen as leaders, right? So they know that, hey, I can get there. And a lot of our students come there, and I think that gives them positive role models. And so I think that's a part of it. I think making sure we understand and don't hide from it. Like, there is some ugliness to this, and especially things in the legacy market on both, whether it's racial and there's lots of other negative aspects of how we got here, and we've gotten to successful cannabis sales on the backs of some people, and that's unfortunate. And so we don't want to forget that. And so I think making sure we have, and I think it's one of our goals. I think it also just, it feels good and feels right to promote and try your best to provide a future generational leadership that is more diverse, that is more inclusive, whether it's race, whether it's gender, whether it's orientation, that more people who look like the people who consume this plant are able to sell this plant. And we've made some progress as a industry, but we are clearly have a long way to go. So that's something that, the school has prided itself on, whether it's locally in Cleveland or whether there are some things we can do nationally, is trying our best. And it's hard, but trying our best to make the industry be better, make the industry be more inclusive, make the industry have diverse leadership. And we're seeing it every day. Even people like Devin Alexander from Rolling Relief, like, we're seeing more startups, whether it's from people of color, whether it's from females in the industry, or whether it's based off orientation. We're seeing it, and we're still, we're at the bottom. But it's exciting to think that we are hopefully, whether it's just our sponsorship of Hush House and getting some social equity operators who may not have been able to get into this secret little thing that is Hush House, like, now you can get in, getting more people involved and getting more people there. Hush House itself is, a minority owned company and female. So that's amazing as well. So it's exciting. It's exciting times. I know, we all know, admit we got a long way to go. But the future is going to be better. The future is going to be better. I don't know if we have a part in that. I mean, it's very, not very braggadistic. That's not a word to say, but I hope we're a small part of it. And I hope just in my heart, that it is more inclusive, more diverse. We're getting there. And I just hope we stay on that path. I really do.
Absolutely. Incremental progress, but progress, no doubt. That's what we're pushing for. And like BC said, Cleveland School of Cannabis is a social equity partner for the Hush House event after party in Las Vegas during MJ BizCon. So we're entering Weed Week. It's officially Weed Week. I'm not in
It
Vegas
is
yet.
on.
I know a lot of people are out there. I'm flying my ass out there tomorrow. Hush House is on Thursday, speakeasy event. If you've RSVP'd, we will see you there. If not, make sure to tap in with us. But, BC, before I get you up out of here, we do have to, for people wanting more information on Cleveland School of Cannabis, csceducation.com. But I got to give you, the floor real quick to plug. You got your own podcast, Because Cannabis. So, plug me the 411 on that and where people can find that, man.
We'll do that for sure. We'll start with the Cleveland School of Cannabis, csceducation.com, csceducation.com. There's lots of different links on there. We got blog posts. We got information about the site. If you're local to Northeast Ohio or definitely within a 60-mile radius, just being on site is definitely something to check out. We got an event on December 3rd called Hempmas. It's kind of a hemp-themed holiday mart. So if you're in Northeast Ohio in that time, check it out. If you're somewhere across the country, we have an online educational platform that could work for you. So csceducation.com. We are everywhere socially, multiple different channels, whether it's LinkedIn, it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, it's on Instagram. Our Instagram game has been really picking up. So Cleveland School of Cannabis, follow it there. We'd appreciate it. I will give a shout out if I'm on here. Thank you, Mitch, on Respect My Region. Because Cannabis every single Friday, 4:20 p.m. Brand new shows. I think this Friday is the CEOs of My Flora DNA, a genetic splicing gene editing company that looks at cannabis on that level. So that's pretty exciting. Every Friday, 4:20 p.m. Because Cannabis on YouTube and audio everywhere else. Mitch, thank you for having the Cleveland School of Cannabis on here. I am not being invited to Las Vegas. Tyrone Russell, Kevin Green, our management is there. Like upper representatives are there. I assume they're listening right now. I am in Ohio. I'm not like you, Mitch, where I get to take a jet plane and jet set out there. So if you see them, and they're dapperly dressed gentlemen. They'll be at Hush House November 17th, 8 p.m. Secret location and password to be. I would love to get a secret password, Mitch. Like someone to be like, text me, be here. So give them a little grief. Ask them where's BC. Let them know. Maybe next time they'll get to fly me to Vegas. But thank you, Kevin and Tyrone, for letting me come on here. Thank you for sponsoring, this program with Hush House and giving people that may not have had a chance to get into the secret party. They're going to have like 700 people and secret activities. They're going to have like even letter writing campaign for the Last Prisoner Project. Like this place is good. Are you going to Hush House? That's what I need to know.
Yeah. We'll be doing. We're going to be doing a live podcast during the event, man. So yeah, I will be in the build. My usual MJ BizCon is 3 events a night to maximize networking. That's what I'm there for. The free food at 3 different events is definitely a plus. That point. Is a byproduct. The networking is the main focus. But Thursday night, since we're a part of this will likely be the only event I attend that night, and I will be there for the long haul. So that is a rare occasion. I'm very, very much excited though. That's to be honest, I just was in Vegas for another conference, so I'm not excited to go back to Vegas, but I am excited for this particular event.
Well, I think it's going to be an awesome time. I think everyone should go check it out. If you haven't, there's tickets there. I think it's Hush House or hushvegas.com. I should probably promote that. csceducation.com. That's what I'll promote. But definitely Hush House. Thank you for giving a chance for the Cleveland School of Cannabis to be on here to talk about it. Like I said, just as much the fact that we're able to give some people a chance to get there is important. And Kevin and Tyrone will be out there representing the school. Give them a little shout out there. And then, csceducation.com. We definitely would appreciate that. I think we're got a lot of places to grow, literally, figuratively, in the future. So hopefully one of you listening out there will grow with us.
I love that, man. This is the North America Weed Tour podcast. We're looking at the best in legal cannabis across the map. We got one more episode today, I think at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard. And then we're clocking out until Thursday, where we're going to run an episode live at Hush. So if you guys are there, we'll see you. If not, we'll see you online. Check in for more content soon. Big ups, BC, Cleveland School of Cannabis. This is the North American Weed Tour podcast. We are out.